Welcome back to the show, kids. So, it's been a while, actually, since I've made a video. And an even longer while since I've uploaded a video. And what can I tell you? Just need a little break. People need breaks from stuff. I've been making a few videos a week for a few years, you know? And when you spend too much time inside of something, it can sometimes suck the life out of you. So, what am I here to do? What am I making a video about? I'm definitely not making a video about changing strings. That's by no means the thing that I'm doing. Making a video about changing strings. Well, what are you making a video about? Well, you probably read it in the title. Although I haven't quite worked out what the title is in my head. I'm sure, to me, it'll be something hilarious. But you see, the thing is, I don't do YouTube to make money. I mean, I make money on YouTube, but I don't rely on the money that I make from YouTube, like, in any way. Our family doesn't rely on it. It's not part of our family budget. Like, it's just something I do for fun. For funsies. And the reason I started doing this was for fun. And the fact that you can make a little bit of money doing it makes it more fun, right? And the fact that, you know, that there are people out there who are making a good living doing it, that's also a good thing. It doesn't come without its problems. For example, when your motivation for doing something is to make money, what you're willing to do and or not do, or say and or not say, or participate and or not participate in, will probably change slightly based on the fact that if you want to make money, you have to follow a certain, a certain way. Without getting too specific, the idea of being brand friendly is, that's a thing. So what I'm really trying to say is that changes the motivation for the things that you say, and and the way you say them and why you say them. Because if somebody's paying you money to say something, right, you have to decide whether or not you want to say the thing that they're paying you money to say. And while people will tell you that they only endorse products that they like, there are just as many people who will they'll just do whatever for whoever because they're getting paid to do that. And that's okay too. I mean, whatever, right? Do what you gotta do to make your nut. But as a viewer, right? As a viewer, you should be aware of who's saying what and what their motivation for saying that thing is. Because the consequence is that you as the viewer, who are often trying to make purchasing decisions based on what somebody is telling you, have to understand that there are people telling you things that aren't necessarily the entire truth, and that could be for a variety of reasons, including which, and not limited to, them being paid to say those things, right? And the idea that there is a single authority on all things guitar or anything else is preposterous, right? And so, as somebody who not only has done, but has evidence of having done, as somebody who has both owned and worked on and touched both many guitars, but also many Gibsons. The first thing that I wonder every time I see one of these new videos coming up for, to talk about the Mark Agnesi video, which I will concede was unfortunate. It was an unfortunate video to put out. Absolutely. Gibson should take that on the chin as a corporation. Whoever's in charge of their marketing should have worked out a better way, to come out of the gate. And while that's unfortunate, it is by no means an indication of the quality of Gibson guitars. Like, just because they put out a crap video, just because whoever they've put in charge of marketing is an idiot, it doesn't mean they make bad guitars. And it doesn't mean that these guitars are overpriced, and it doesn't mean that they should lower their prices, and it doesn't mean, like, they're not without their problems, but every guitar company has problems, right? I've touched and felt and seen and smelt many different kinds of guitars, and they all have issues, all of them. Show me any guitar brand and I can point issues out to you. Anybody who's looked at enough guitars with a critical eye, anybody who's touched and tried to fix and tried to set up and tried to modify enough guitars, you begin to get an idea of, first of all, the few critical things that make a guitar function at all. And the rest is really just nitpicky. I would say that I have touched personally, by a factor of at least 3 to 1, more Fender guitars than I have Gibson. And part of the reason I personally now only own Gibsons is because I've touched so many Fenders with so many unrecoverable problems. Right? Gibson is not the only company that has suffered quality control problems at one point or another as a guitar company. I defy you to find me the perfect guitar. They don't exist. And the people who say that you're paying for just the Gibson name aren't factoring into the equation that the vast majority of guitar players on the planet don't have a clue who I am. They don't have a clue who Mark Agnesi is. They don't know who the salty Canadian engineer is, right? Like, they just don't know who these people are. And the Gibson name holds weight. Like Coca-Cola, like Sony, like any of these other worldwide recognizable brands, it carries value. And you can't discount that, because first of all, it begins to make a very playable, usable thing as much of an investment, as much of a monetary investment as it is something that you can just enjoy, because it's going to hold its value because of its brand name recognition and standard of quality. And among the hundreds of Gibsons that I've touched, there is definitely a standard of quality that you can expect, even on their lower line guitars. And while I'm by no means sitting here defending Gibson's stupid marketing idea and poor Mark's involvement in it, I do think that all these videos are becoming just a little bit disingenuous. I didn't really have an overall agenda with this video about where I was going with what I'm talking about. I'm just sort of, as I always have on YouTube, just kind of started rambling. Because I have been thinking about this for a couple of weeks. While this has all been going on, thinking to myself, like, how preposterous some of these videos are. If you're gonna stand up on your high horse about something, like, and start moaning about something from a position of both authority and moral authority, the idea that you're just doing this for clicks because you had experience with one Gibson SG one time that was out of tune. Like, buddy, show me a guitar that's poorly set up and I'll show you a guitar that doesn't stay in tune. And personally, I have had more experience with Fender, particularly Strats, obviously not as much a Telecaster, but Strats that won't stay in tune. I've had more occasion to deal with the Strats that won't stay in tune than any kind of Gibson, which is part of the reason that I now only own Gibsons, and I have owned 3 times as many Fenders as I have Gibsons, at least. And that's just a conservative estimate. And the only reason I ever got on YouTube was to learn to The idea that I had in my mind was that it was going to be like this community thing where I could teach myself to learn to fix and repair guitars from having had a less than positive experience having somebody else repair my guitar and being really driven at the time after having watched Dave, to learn to repair my own guitars so that I could just, if something was wrong with it, I could deal with it. And in my mind, I thought at the time when I started doing YouTube a few years ago was, oh, this is going to be, what this is going to be like is I'll post videos of me doing stuff and people will offer ideas of how to better do it, and it'll become this sort of little community that learns together how to repair guitars. Well, it clearly did not turn into that, right? It quickly became what every other YouTube channel is. And while I was driven by some of that, I've never really been driven to make YouTube videos based on how much money I'm making or how much clout I have. The point of which is, at some point I began to sort of consider myself, in my own mind, the voice of the consumer on YouTube. Somebody who has no affiliation with any brand really per se. Well, no, not at all. So my opinion isn't swayed by a brand that gives me free products. And I can just say what I really truly believe, which is the opinion of the average person, right? Not necessarily the opinion of an expert, but somebody who might be any consumer going into a store to buy a guitar, who plays guitar casually or in a band or just at home or whatever, right? Like, I would think most guitar players are not professional guitar players. Most guitar players are just dudes at home, right? Or girls, pardon me. So it's important not to be swayed by marketing that will lead you into buying products that you'll end up being dissatisfied with. And that, which has been my experience. I have been led into buying products from people that are being paid to advertise basically a product in one way or another. Whether it's them selling directly for that company or working for a company that sells that product, right? They're benefiting by telling you something positive about that product, painting it in a positive light, no matter what. The benefit to them, of course, is that they sell that product, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you have to understand as a consumer, if you really want to know where the potholes are in specific products, then you need to go to people who have no horse in the race. And I'm not necessarily saying that specifically is me, but it's somebody like me, somebody who doesn't have a horse in the race. And those people are getting fewer and further between, i.e. they're getting harder to find. People that don't have a horse in the race. Because YouTube used to be a much more, you did your thing, but now it's just a race to see who can advertise what, who's most brand friendly, and like it's becoming a big commercial. It's becoming one big product advertising vehicle because people are disguising advertisements as entertainment. I'm not saying they shouldn't do it. I'm not saying there shouldn't be a vehicle for that, but you should be aware of it as a consumer. I consider myself a consumer, not a product salesperson. And what a lot of YouTubers have become are product salespeople. In one way or another, they're trying to sell you products, and that's okay. I'm not saying that shouldn't exist, but you should be aware of the difference between somebody who's trying to sell you a product and somebody like Johan. Like Johan, who does all the Marshall amp stuff. There's nobody paying that dude to say that stuff, right? He's giving you his real opinion under circumstances that he thinks are fair and equitable for the outcome, and almost never gives his opinion, which is even stronger. It's an even stronger position to take. Just let the thing speak for itself and let people come to their own conclusions, which I think is really brilliant. It's really brilliant aspect of his channel. So if I were looking for advice on what kind of amp to get or what kind of speakers to get, like that's the kind of guy I would be going to go look through his stuff, right? As a consumer. Plus he's super entertaining, right? He's super entertaining, He's a really good player. That guy that he brings on once in a while is a fantastic player. His buddy, what's his name? Simon, I think? Just a phenomenal player. Holy cow. So yeah, did Gibson make a stupid marketing decision? Yes. Is Gibson a corporation trying to make money? 100%. Do they make amazing guitars? Yep, they sure do. Are their guitars overpriced? Depends who you ask. Right? It depends who you ask, and it depends how much money's in your pocket. Is anything overpriced? Yeah, lots of stuff's overpriced. But are you willing to take the money out of your pocket and pay for it? Well, that's up to you. Is a company allowed to sell their product for whatever they want to try and get for it, for as much as they can get for it? Yep, 100% they are. Speaking of products, I got this little rack tuner. You see that? This little Korg rack tuner. That thing is yeah, I love it. It's fantastic. So there we go. I'll stretch out the strings a bit more. Get this little baby ready. I'm just getting it cleaned up because I'm going to loan it to a friend for a couple of weeks. I figured I'd get all my filth off of it before she sits and tries to play it. So get a fresh set of strings on it, clean all my filth off of it, shine it up a little bit. I mean, I'm sorry, but tell me that's not the most beautiful headstock. It is, in my view. And they're all that I own now. And there are so many reasons I could tell you why these are, but that's not important. What's important is you play the guitars that you find most inspiration in, and forget about these silly things on the internet. Lay your hands on a real guitar. Talk to some friends who have some experience, who've touched a few guitars. Watch a few YouTube videos from people who aren't shilling for certain companies. But most of all, play whatever the hell you want, on whatever the hell you want, and that should really be it. For me, I like Gibson. I'll always play Gibson. You can like whatever you want, but these are the ones that I like.